Hello students. In the previous video, I have explained you what are the various PLSQL statements, how PLSQL is different from the SQL queries, what are the differences, what are the advantages, and what are the various syntaxes. Now in this particular video, I'm going to explain you one concept of PLSQL programming, which is called as a trigger. The name itself is telling you trigger. You might have heard every gun or a pistol has a trigger. What happens when you just press the trigger? An event occurs. What is that event? A bullet comes out and it will shoot the target. Here also in PLSQL, you are having a separate concept of trigger. This trigger will be executed when any particular event is executed. Okay, if event is occurred, an event occurred, the trigger executes. So what is a trigger? See here. It is called as a block structure or a PLSQL block which is fired. Fired here is nothing but executed or invoked. Who is invoking this trigger? The Oracle engine. So when this particular trigger is invoked by the Oracle engine, when that specified event occurs. Now suppose you are telling that if event E1 occurs, then fire trigger T1. If event E2 occurs, fire trigger T2. Like this, for every small event, you can set a trigger. When that particular event occurs, this trigger program gets executed. Best example I can tell you is, you people will be going to your ATM center. You will put your card and you will enter your PIN number. How is that particular system triggering and telling you that whether your password or that PIN number is right or wrong? If it is right, it will allow you or redirect you to the next page. But what if the entire PIN number is wrong? The PIN number which you have entered is wrong. A trigger is fired because you have performed an event which entered incorrect PIN number. So in response, a trigger gets fired telling you that please check your PIN number or invalid PIN number. Okay, so PLSQL program. These triggers can be executed in response to any of the following events. They could be any of the data manipulation language statement, which we have already learned, like after every deletion, you can execute a trigger. After every insert, a trigger can be fired. After every update, a trigger can be fired. Okay, even after the DDL statements, you can invoke or fire any trigger saying that table created. That can be a trigger. After you alter the table, you may get a statement table altered. That can also be a trigger. If you set, like suppose you are setting a trigger in the program saying that whenever any row of the table is deleted, then an information should be given to the user saying that you related this particular row. Okay, so what are the main benefits of using these triggers? First one is security. As I told you, in banking sector, if at all the PIN number what you entered is wrong, then it should stop you from doing any transaction and it should trigger telling that the PIN number is invalid or the account number is invalid. So here it will impose the security, it will prevent invalid transactions, as well as referential integrity is also enforced. You all know what is referential integrity. When you are making use of primary key of one table as foreign key in some other table, what happens? If at all the primary key value is existing, then only you can refer it to some other table. There is no primary key column, there is no primary key value, then can you refer it in some other table? No. So these all kinds of securities, authorizations, prevention of invalid transactions, these all can be performed using triggers. So see how this syntax of creating any trigger goes. The very first line is telling create. We all know what is meant by creation. It will create. Hope you can see this hand mouse pointer. So create is nothing but you have a new term here, or replace. What this means, maybe somebody else also has created a trigger with same name. So what happens now? You are creating, so the trigger which you created will be replaced. And what is that you want to create? Trigger. When you want to create a table, you will write create table. Now you want to create a trigger. So you are writing create trigger. Whatever name you want to give to the trigger, you can give here. Then you are having something called as before or after. Insert, update, delete. What this before or after? Insert, update, delete means you want this particular trigger to get invoked or fired before any of these operations or after any of these operations. You have to mention here, and you can mention only one, either before or after. Okay, so if you're saying before, the trigger will be fired before any of the operations. If you're saying after, it will be fired and executed, invoked, whatever it is after these operations. Then trigger is set for some particular column or on the entire table. You can set that particular trigger on any one particular column of the table or on the entire table. Then this trigger must be applicable for each row. The trigger which you are setting must be applicable to each row. Then here, this is a very important point. When condition, what this means? This all creation of trigger, invoking the trigger before or after insert, update, delete, whether on a particular column or a table, these all should happen when this particular condition which you are writing here becomes true. Then what should happen if this condition is true and this particular trigger is invoked? What should happen? All these SQL statements must get executed. All these SQL statements must be executed. Okay, so what is happening here? You are creating a trigger and you are telling whether the trigger should be fired before or after these particular operations, and whether you are restricting the trigger for one single column of the table or for the entire table, and you are mentioning when the trigger should be executed, condition, and if all this comes true, this condition, then you are telling what all SQL statements should be executed. Now, what all I explained to you are here in these particular next slides. See, what do you mean by create or replace? What do you mean by before, after? What do you mean by insert, update, and delete of column name, on table name, for each row, when condition? So what all I have explained you just now, the same thing have been mentioned in this particular 2 slides. So whenever you are watching this video, you can stop the video, you can see, read what this particular each and every line in that particular syntax means. Now I'm going to show you a small example. I have taken a small table called as customer. What are the various columns in this particular customer table? ID of every customer, name of the customer, age, address, and salary of this particular customer. Okay. Now I am writing a row level trigger. Okay. What that trigger has to do, see here. The program which I am writing will create a row level trigger. Okay, and when that trigger will be fired, insert or update or delete means any one of the operations, whether you are inserting a new row or you are updating the existing row or you are deleting, whatever it is you are doing on the customer table, this particular trigger must be, what is it, invoked or fired. And what it has to do, simply it has to display the difference between old value and new value of the salary. Okay, it has to simply show you the what was the old salary and what is the new salary. So check this particular program. Create or replace trigger. The name is your choice. We have given here display salary changes. And I want this to happen before itself, before delete or insert or update on which particular table? Customers table. See, the table which we have taken is customers table. So I am creating a trigger. The name I am giving is, I'm asking the trigger, you simply display the salary changes. But you do it before insert or delete or update on customer table. And this is for each row, because I told you it is a row level trigger. It is for each row. When it should do, whenever the new ID which you are entering is greater than 0. What is ID? ID is the customer ID here. So whenever a new ID value comes And usually ID of any customer will be greater than 0. No particular customer will have a negative value for his or her ID. Then I have to declare some local variables here. So I have taken one local variable as salary difference whose data type is numeric. What I have done here now, salary difference is equal to the new salary which will be entered minus the old salary which is existing. This salary is the old salary, and whenever I am doing changes to the table, what is the new salary which I am entering? That is going to give me the difference. Then I am going to display first the old salary. Next, I am going to display the new salary. Third line is I am going to display the difference. Hope I am clear. I created a trigger. I gave the name as simply display salary changes, and this trigger will be fired before any of these three operations occur: insert, delete or update. On which table? Customers table. And because I have already told you it is a row level trigger, whenever a row is inserted or deleted or updated, the trigger has to get fired. But what is the condition you are checking here? Whenever any new customer ID comes into picture. Then I have calculated the salary difference with the formula new salary minus old salary, and I am displaying all the three values. Hope I am going clear with my explanation. Next, let us see how this particular execution happens. See what I have done here. I said insert into customers all the five values: 7, Kriti, 22, HP, 7,500. Let us go back and check. Do you have any customer called as 7 Kriti? No, means this is a new customer's data which you are inserting for the first time. And whenever you are inserting the customer's data for the first time, will you have anything called as old salary? No. So what happens? See here, old salary is not displayed because for the first time you are entering and inserting this customer's data. So old salary will be blank or null. New salary is you have entered just now. So 7,500. And because the old salary is 0, 7,500 minus 0 is again nothing but 0. So the salary difference is nothing here. So this all happened before this insert operation has executed. Next, let us perform a DML operation. What I have done here, update customers set salary is equal to salary plus 500, where ID is equal to 2. Let us see who is the customer with ID 2. The customer with ID 2 is somebody by name Kilan, and his salary is 1500. Now what I have done, I have added 500 more. So what should be my new salary? 1500 plus 500. See here, old salary was 1500, new salary is 2000. And what is the difference? 2000 minus 1500, that is 500. So this is happening because the trigger has been set according to the conditions with formulas. Let us see one more example. See here, I have a student table, roll number, name, age, and course of that particular student. And what I have written here, usually any student means all their study period will finish by 30 itself. Maximum by 30 years, any human being will finish their all PGs, whatever they want to do. Very rare case if they are doing some PhDs or any other degrees. So what I have done here is we have written a trigger program which is checking the age before you are inserting or updating rows into a student table. And what is that you are doing here? If age value which you are entering is greater than 30, then you have to raise application error. This is also one way of writing triggers. Previous example we have seen, we wrote when condition, but here is there anything called when condition? No. When they are not making use of this condition, you have something called as raise application error, and this is a default address for application errors in the server. So age should not be greater than 30. Okay, if anybody's age is greater than 30, then this particular trigger will fire, it gets executed, and this error message will be displayed to that particular user. Let us see here. Insert into student 16 Sina 32 BCom. So you immediately got an error saying age should not be greater than 30. Now you have again written insert into student value 17 Anna 22 BCom. See, you got one row created. Because the age is not greater than 30, the trigger did not fire. But in the earlier case, because the age was 32, which is greater than 30, the trigger got executed. When you are doing updation also, see, you are setting the age as 31 for a student whose roll number is 12. Then again the trigger comes into picture. You are setting the age as 23 for same roll number 12. There was no trigger. Okay, this is how your triggers will be executed. So I'll give you one more example, like which you people can try is, you take bank customers. Okay, you just make some customer ID, customer name and balance. Then again in the program, what you do, you accept a withdrawal amount. And whenever after withdrawal, the total balance is going to be less than 500, then it should give an error. But if it is not less than 500, then the transaction can proceed. So I hope you understood what are triggers. Then in the next video, I'm going to explain you what is meant by cursors and why cursors are being used in PLSQL.